So it's Las Vegas, 2012, about 3 in the morning, and I was dying. I only had 30 days left to live. And for some reason, I couldn't tell Kelly, my wife, or our boys. I had to, in the dream, I had to walk around with this secret I couldn't tell anyone. And I'm about to leave them forever, but I couldn't explain that to them. So I wake up lying in the hotel bed. I'm drenched in sweat. I felt like I was having a panic attack. I mean, I've had nightmares before, but this one was totally different. I remember just sitting there in the dark, just staring at the wall, just thinking about all the things I'd been running from for literally years. And even in a dream, when you only have 30 days left to live, it forces all the unimportant stuff to just disappear, all the noise. All the important stuff rises to the top. And so all these reasons you've been telling yourself about, like, why you do what you do, the things that felt so important at one time, or even yesterday, or even in the future, they're literally gone. So this was at the Palm Casino, and I'm running one of my mastermind groups. It was called the 7 Mastermind. So 20 entrepreneurs, all making 6 figures, but all wanting to hit 7. So these were smart people, very driven, very, very successful. These were people who figured out how to win at the game of life. And I had this whole agenda planned for Saturday morning around like business strategy and growth tactics. But I looked down at my slides at 9 in the morning and they just felt a little empty. So I decided to tell them about the dream instead. And I asked them one question. What do you actually want? What are the most important things in your life? Like, what actually matters to you? And I just felt the room, man. It shifted quickly. Nobody wanted to go first and actually answer the questions, but then it's sort of just opened up. So Chris, one of my buddies, a guy I'd known for years, he explained how his wife was leaving him. They were getting a divorce. He said he'd seen it coming, but kept telling himself he had to get to that mythical next level, that she would understand. And ironically, she did understand perfectly. She understood that this was his choice. Steve was another guy who could barely get the words out without crying. His 6-year-old daughter the night before kept asking him to play, and he's packing for the trip. He's doing some business work, important work right in his head. So he kept telling her, in a minute, in a minute, in a minute. And then she falls asleep on the couch. And then he left for the airport the next morning and he didn't even get to say goodbye. Don said he'd gained 40 pounds over the last couple of years and he couldn't even climb stairs without getting winded. He thought about getting healthy constantly, but thinking about it and actually doing something about it, that's a totally different story. So here I am staring at 20 people in a room. All of them were winning and almost none of them truly happy. And so I kept asking myself the same question I want to ask you right now. How does this even happen? How do smart, driven, capable people end up succeeding at things that don't actually matter to them? Well, I think it's because there's 3 versions of you, and only one of them is real. There's you, which is your higher self. This is the real one. This is the version of you that knows exactly what matters. And you've probably been suffocating this version for years. And personally, I love this part of me. He's been such a good friend to get to know deeply and intimately the past couple of years because he knows the answer to every question. And then there's what I call you too. So this is the second version of you. This is how other people actually see you. So you have your wife or your husband, you have your kids, your coworkers, your friends, right? This version of you that's built in their head from every interaction experience, every moment, every fight, every congratulations, every time you laughed or watched a movie or went out, right? So if you know 500 people in this world, there's going to be 500 different versions of you walking around, and every single one of them is going to be a little bit different. You too is super hard to control, and it's not even really the problem. It's just reality. Life is about perspective, and you'll never truly be able to get inside of other people's heads, especially when it comes to what they think of you. So that brings us to you 3. And that's the problem. This is how you think other people see you. It's not how they actually see you. It's how you imagine they see you. And this is a sneaky little one because it's your guess about what's going on in all of their heads. And remember, they're dealing with essentially the same thing that you're dealing with. They have 3 versions of themselves to worry about. So this version is almost entirely fictional because you have no idea what people actually think of you. You have guesses and projections and assumptions that you can make based on a conversation or a comment from 3 years ago, but this is all in your imagination. And yet this version is what most people spend their entire lives serving. You might be thinking stuff like, they probably expect me to, or they're going to think I'm weak if or, I should do this because that's the type of person that I am, right? You're trying to live your life built on all of these faulty assumptions. Well, it's fiction. It's a story you completely made up, and you're making real decisions based on what you think people think about you. I mean, how crazy is this? And if you think I'm exaggerating, if you're sitting there right now saying, okay, Greg, I get it, but I'm not really that bad, let me tell you about this little experiment. So it's 1980. Researchers at Dartmouth College decided to test a theory. So they bring a bunch of people into a room and they sit them down with a professional makeup artist. They apply this realistic facial scar to their right cheek. It's really ugly. It's like dismembering. It's pretty impossible to miss. So these participants watched in the mirror as the scar is applied, right? So they could see it and it looked so real. Then right before they sent them out, the makeup artist said, oh wait, she needs to apply one more thing. So she said that she needed to apply some moisturizer to keep the makeup from cracking. But this was the trick. This was just an excuse to completely remove the scar. So they wiped away the mirror, they took the scar away, and then they sent them out into the room. These people had a completely normal face, but they believed that they were disfigured. They believed they had this scar. And the task was simple. Just go into the next room and have a conversation with a complete stranger. So these people didn't know each other, but they just had to have a conversation for a few minutes and really just be themselves. And then the craziest thing happened. They reported back that they felt the other person's discomfort. They said the strangers really didn't look them in the eye. They felt extreme tension in the room. They felt distant. They felt that the stranger was being like patronizing or even judging them. They experienced every social consequence of being disfigured, but they weren't. There was no scar. The stranger saw a completely normal face. So there was no real discomfort or avoidance or judgment because there's nothing to judge. Everything that they experienced, every single ounce of it, it was constructed entirely inside their own minds. That's you three in a laboratory. So I'm going to ask you right now, how many scars are you walking around with right now that don't exist? How many decisions have you made because of someone else's judgment that wasn't even happening? How many years have you spent performing for an audience that isn't even watching you? And if you're like most, far too many. So then how do we stop this? How do you let the real you drive the bus? Well, let me share with you exactly how I did. So about 10 years ago, I coached this Little League baseball team. And we started the season on fire. We had 9 straight wins. Kids were crushing the ball. Everybody was having fun. And then we hit the wall. So 6 straight losses heading into this super important tournament. And no one got hurt. These were the same kids who used to be good who weren't playing good anymore. These kids couldn't even get the ball out of the infield. So I picked up the phone. I call a buddy of mine who's a professional scout. I was hoping he'd give me some, technical hitting advice. But he just said, hey, Greg, have you ever heard the story of the pink elephant? He told me that in spring training, they gathered all these professional athletes around. They put them in the outfield, and they told them to close their eyes and imagine that they were sitting on their couch at home. And then he said, now, whatever you do, no matter what, do not think of a giant pink elephant walking through your front door and sitting down right next to you. And then every single player started cracking up because every single guy imagined the pink elephant. Their brains can't even process the word don't. When someone says, don't think of whatever, the first thing your brain is going to process is the whatever. It has to. It has to see the thing before it can try not to see it. So my kids are walking up to the plate like, don't strike out or don't ground out, don't pop out. And their brains were hearing those exact words. So we just replaced the thought. And it was hit the ball, hit the ball, hit the ball. And you know what happened? Everything changed instantly. We won the whole thing. We won the whole tournament. These kids are in their early 20s now, and almost every time I see one of them, around town, they bring up the story of the pink elephant. It stuck with them that much. And the reason is because what we focus on expands. This is like a universal law. And it's really not more complicated than that. So you got to think of it this way. You three is your pink elephant. It's what you've been creating and building your life around. So just stop doing that. The higher self, the real you, the voice that says hit the ball, that focuses on what you actually want. build this or love her or show up for them, create something that matters. It's the same you. The only thing that changes is your focus. And it's a choice. And when your focus changes, everything changes. Those 20 entrepreneurs in that room in Vegas, they weren't broken or stupid. They didn't even make bad decisions. They actually made excellent decisions for the wrong version of themselves. They'd been serving you three for so long, they forgot that it was fiction. Maybe they didn't even know. So I think of it like this. The fix is not like this magical 5-year plan. It's not a complete life overhaul. It's way simpler than that. It's simply you understanding which version of you has been driving the bus. And then making the decision, like right now, to let the real you simply take the wheel. Peace, which is what I think we're all really after. It's not the absence of problems. It's the presence of clarity of what's important. So you don't need fewer problems. You need to know who you are. You need to know what actually matters. And you need to stop fragmenting yourself across 1,000 things that don't.